So welcome to this second webinar that we are holding on the feature that we are releasing to our product that comes from the AWAX licensing that we have done with the feature set from Blue Horseshoe, AWAX ATRAX. And for this session, we will focusing on those 4 features that you see here. The clusterful, let me see if I'm sharing, maybe I'm not sharing. So we will be demonstrating today, user will be the cluster full, the cluster position full, zone threshold replenishment,
and release to the warehouse rule.
Yes, and Henrik will demonstrate the shipment auto update prior to work execution, and we will record later on the advanced allocation strategy FIFO. Okay, so any comments on that? Else, I will give the microphone to Mirza.
Okay, can you hear me, everyone? So I will. Good, I will start sharing my screen. So just a second. Tell me that you now see the preview for Dynamics D365 and the feature that we will first welcome everyone. And this is Mirza speaking, working from Philippe's warehousing team from Copenhagen. And I'm involved together with Henrik to implement the features from the Blue Horseshoe and of course build the test and whatnot around them. So today we are proud to present a few of them. The first one is something that we call release to warehouse philosophy. For you who are familiar with the credit limits and the other mechanism of preventing the things to be released to the warehouse, like a credit check or then you will quickly realize that this feature that we will be describing right now, called release to warehouse rule, it's similar. The big difference is that whenever we set up credit limits, we do have a very large amount of things to be set up in order to do maybe a very simple thing, and that is to prevent an order to be released in full if these rules are not obeyed. So to give more power to the warehousing, this feature has been introduced to do things in a more simplistic way. And what it does is basically introduce new ability, which is quite flexible, that when you release to warehouse, it is a simple parameter on the warehouse setup, I will show in a moment, that determine whether you are allowed to release partially or fully the order lines that you have created from the sales order perspective. It works hand in hand with the advanced cross-docking feature that we are not ready yet with, but these two will be tightly tied together in a sense where, for instance, where a part of an order line from the sales perspective could be marked against the supply source that is coming in from the cross-docking perspective, then of course we want to allow this to happen. So what I'm saying that it works with it, even that you have said fully, it will not affect eventual order that has been packed against the supply, that will still be able to be cross-docked, which means that even that you say normally I'm reserving everything, and unless everything is reserved, I cannot release. This will not affect the cross-docking feature that will be releasing. Do that, of course, every time you have marked for cross-docking, you want to be able to release that part of the line or the sales order. So when you, the quite important thing is that when we do unflighted, so when we enable flight, it's not enough due to some upgrade specifications. So you will need to go to warehouse management, and under the warehouse management parameters, in order to enable it on the top here, now it has disappeared because I have enabled it that I want to demo it for you. But up here between the company information and there will be a small link where you basically enable this feature, and it has something to do with upgrades. So we need to resolve upgrade path for each of the features so we do not compromise the current data and the setups of the customer. So when you enable this one called release to warehouse rule, you should be careful to go in here and enable it. As for you who have been on the last webinar, we are doing exactly the same for the sequencing and editing the work sequences, which is also a new feature replacing the query of how work has been sequenced. That one also needs to be enabled, and it's under the work. You have seen that before. When it is enabled, we will go to the warehouse, and when we open the warehouse, it's very simple. If we take the 61, for instance, that's the one I played with today. Under the warehouse parameter, you have lots of things around reservations, and the new one is here. It says it's not applicable if you don't want to do it, and the reason why this enablement has been set up there, because all of your warehouses that you have today will not have this parameter enabled. So when you say now I'm ready to use it, when you enable it in the warehouse parameters, what will happen that all of your warehouse will receive this one called not applicable, which means that feature will be enabled for them, but will not compromise any of the setup of the current warehousing. And then you will go to each of them and say, okay, do I allow partial reservation or do I require full reservation? And this is exactly what feature does. So there is no more than that. And by having the sales order created, if you have allowed partial reservation, you can reserve 2 out of 5 on the line and still be able to process it into the warehouse or not. So if there is no any questions, I would like to continue to the next feature. The next one, it's the zone based mean and max replenishment. And the difference is that today we do not have zone replenishment, as you are aware of. We do have mean and max replenishment that is based on the products and locations, but it does not evaluate anything outside the location specified for the products that you have specified, in the sense that it needs to have on hand of the product, and as well, and if not, if you want to replenish 0 locations, then you need to activate the fixed locations and then assign the items to these fixed locations. But the new feature is called zone-based replenishment. It is utilizing the mean and max replenishment strategy, but however, it does replenish a whole warehouse zones. So it looks at all positions of warehouse zones, and it does respect strategies like consolidate that I have set up in this demo. So let's go through the setup of it. So the first, what we needed to do is to set up the replenishment template. So replenishment template setup is here. And I have defined the one replenishment called mean and max replenishment for zones. This is the one, as we can see. And what does it include? It does include that we are replenishing in eaches. It is using the directive code zone replenishment that I need to use on my location directives for put, because this one will now require to have a put in order to define which zone I want to replenish to, and we will come back to that. And then I'm using directive code to connect it to my location directives. What I also have said that in that particular zone that I'm replenishing this item, I want to have a minimum quantity of 50, maximum quantity of 150. And in this floor zone, which is my picking zone that I'm replenishing, I have 2 locations with this item that are below, for warehouse 61, that are below my minimum. So it should trigger replenishment. And I'm routing up. This is the old stuff. And what I also have defined here that this is the new one. You see, instead of, let's just edit it once, instead of replenishing locations, now we have a threshold for zones. When that is selected, then you are available to say which warehouse you are searching for the zone in, and then zones to replenish. I have set up the zone ID to be floor, which is my picking locations. And in 2 of them, I have set 12 and 5, if I remember correctly. And reason is to show you that consolidate should also work, which will then seek the locations with that quantity in a zone and try to consolidate when you do the zone replenishment. And if not possible, it will of course assign it to any other space available. And what I also have done here, I have selected the product that I want to run. And my product is A0001. You can of course do few or all. But of course, you need to say which product you want to replenish a zone in which quantities, otherwise it will not apply. So what we also need to do here, we need to construct location directives. So let's go to location directives and see what we have done there. For the replenishment ones, we need to change to replenish. And here we have two, zone pick and zone put. In zone pick, we have said that for warehouse 61, site 6, we need to pick from somewhere when we do the zone replenishment. And what I have done here, I've said that I do allow split on the picking part. And as you can see, it's quite wide open where it takes everything from 0 to 10 million. You could probably just select less. And then it says pick from bulk. So I'm picking my stuff from bulk to replenish the floor picking zone. And in my edit query here on the lines, I've said that zone that I'm replenishing from, it's bulk. And I have added this item to two locations in the bulk in the quantities of 100 and 200, if I remember correctly. So a strategy, it's not, because it doesn't make sense, of course, to consolidate something that you're picking from, but you will see that we have done that on the put side. So then there is a put that does similar, but on the put, I have connected the replenishment of min and max to have a directed code, which will then tell us where to put these items to. What we also can see here, that it's quite wide open, and we do allow split. The reason is that if you have a quantities that are more, replenishment more than a location or stocking limits, you want to allow several replenishment work to be created to replenish several locations in that zone. I'm running strategy consolidate, so I want to consolidate items that are replenishing if anything exists already on hand in the picking zone. And on my edit query, I have selected that I'm replenishing the zone floor with this location directive. So it's pointing to the floor zone. So to summarize the setup, I have a replenishment template of strategy zone. I've selected that I'm what zone I want to replenish. I have also selected what item I want to run, and I have and then I have selected location directives of pick and put, where to pick from, bulk, and where to put to. It's floor, and it does respect everything, and I have connected it with a code. So how do we run this? We simply go to our replenishments. Yes, we can search for it. And then here we need to select which one we want to use. And that was the one that we have created, min and max replenishment. So we will go and select that. Replenishment template, and replenishment template I want to select. It's my zone replenishment, as you remember. And I say OK here. And simply we just say run. And we hope that work will be created to replenish from bulk to a floor locations. So it has created a work. And as you have seen, strategy was zone replenishment. So let's see what work has been created here. It does have one replenishment work that it's moving. If you remember, we had 150 in total. I think I have 25 on hand. So it is picking 125, do that we have allowed split. And it picked first 100 from the first bulk location. And then it says, OK, I need 25 more. So it allow that to be deducted from the second one, and do that I in the query do not have any ascending or descending strategies for the quantities. You just pick the first one by alphabetical order that had 100. So that will be a pallet. That took 25 from the other, and it does put these locations into the floor zone. So the zone replenishment now allows you to replenish zones.
Yeah, and it is to mention that this is for the non-fixed location, right? Compared to the min-max is for fixed locations. And this on block, so to speak, the retail segment that are running very much all their warehouse with non-fixed locations.
we have had a heavy feedback that it's very cumbersome to set up the replenishment for specifically, as Philip has said, non-fixed location environments, running the floating locations where people just want to have certain amount of items within the zone. But to mention for you that enrichment of the functionality, as you saw last time, with this what we call slotting, there will be also we will be also able after to do, it's already released, to do a slotting where you, based on the source document of transfer orders and sales orders, can basically do a replenishment to a certain zone or range of the locations to be prepared for what will be released to a warehouse, let's say with the time fence of tomorrow. And in that sense, we can do a replenishment upfront. And it also takes in account of removal of the items from the picking zones. If there are some items that are not needed and obsolete, the movement work will be created for them to be removed from the location to empty the space for the ones that are needed. It's called slotting. So it's really powerful feature. Together with this one, I think we have enriched a functionality a lot.
Yeah. But the customer also needs to use the zone, the split of the areas using zones, else it will be kind of not that useful, because we'd look at all the peak area. Okay, so I guess we will take the question at the end. Marcus, any question in there?
No questions in the comments so far.
Okay,
okay, so let me see if I can share my environment. So let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see it now.
You can see it now.
You can minimize the widget the right now.
Let's just move away. So next to the last feature for today. So it's the shipment auto update, and basically this feature enables a new capability when the file is enabled, and also retains existing the capabilities that we have in the system today. So briefly, the rationale for engaging in this feature is that it gives a real-time representation of shipment quantities, both increases and decreases, by enabling the load details or the load lines associated with the shipment to be automatically updated in particular circumstances. Now, this already happens today when a decrease is made on the source document line. And that source document line is a sales order line or transfer order line. However, it doesn't happen automatically when the order line quantity is increased. So let me show you how this looks when we enable the flight. So when the flight is enabled, I will pick a warehouse as example. And I'll pick the warehouse that I will use, which is warehouse 62. So we have a small parameter which basically says, let me put into edit mode. Yep. Auto update shipment. Now that can assume two values. When the flight is enabled, it assumes this value, which is on quantity decrease by default. This is existing behavior. It basically means that when a source document line, sales order line, or transfer order line is decreased, then that is reflected on the shipment line, given the condition that the line hasn't been waived yet. Now, the new capability is that it can also happen, the automatic update of the shipment line, both on a decrease and on an increase, meaning always. So now we actually have the possibility to enable automatically the downstream insight into both source document line increases and decreases, not as in the past, only for decreases. which enables the process to run more smoothly through the warehouse. Of course, given that the shipment line hasn't been waived yet, otherwise the increase will not happen. So there is a constraint on this. Now, the parameter here is controlled by warehouse. When this parameter is enabled for one or more warehouses, then we cannot enable the auto create of loads during sales order entry nor transfer order entry. Those will conflict. So let me just go to our legal entity parameter here, automatically create at sales order entry and save it. So these are bidirectional, the checks. So if we enable the flight, this is for your information, enable the flight on an environment, we go to a legal entity and the parameter here automatically create load at sales order entry is set to true. And I then try to say that, well, for the shipment auto update, that should always happen. Then we will get a message saying that you cannot do this because it is in conflict with the parameter here on automatic create load at sales order entry.
Because you are not updating the load. So,
correct.
Because you only update one, and then you've been forced to do that trick there.
So this is basically, you're absolutely correct, Philip. Yes, yes. And it is also considering that this is an acquired feature. We could consider some kind of coexistence in the future, but right now for 10.02, no.
It's only the shipment.
It's only yes. So let me briefly show you how this exemplifies itself by picking a sales order. So I could have picked a transfer order. So again, this applies for transfer orders and sales orders. I have enabled the shipment auto update to happen always for warehouse 62. So what I'll do is I'll just pick modified test customers, and I'll just make sure that the warehouse will actually go and pick. Yeah, it's my local environment. It's not the fastest in the world, but it works. So that's it. And I'll just pick a item, which is one of the good ones from our demo data, A001.
This is the good one. You just need to remember the good one.
And the next one it will be number 2. So what I'll do is I'll just add quantity 2 and let me add another line as well. Now naturally I could have saved time, but just to do the auto reservation. Now as I forgot, you'll just have to bear with me and I have to drag you through first. Doing the reservation, I'll just do it per line. Reserve the lot here for the second line and do similar for the first line. Okay, and then of course I have configured here my wave template not to process. So let me just release to warehouse. So what I have here is I have now a shipment created for quantity 2, as I would expect. Now, what I can do is I could do this increase by increasing the delivery remainder, or I could do it on the source document line itself. And I'll just do it on the source document line itself. But I'll basically show how it works both legacy and new feature. So what I'll do is I'll do a decrease on the first line, and I'll do an increase on the second line. I try, and I will try again. And I will apply some patience. I will. And now let's go and have a look at the shipment associated. And here basically you can see that legacy. So the first line is basically legacy functionality. The second line is new. So we can toggle around with this on the transfer order line. Here I have a wave created. There are also examples where we defer the creation of the wave, just creating the shipment, we actually do the release to warehouse. I could also add a new sales order line. If I were to add a new sales order line, then that would also be added to this shipment, which is also new. Removing a sales order line would not remove the line from the shipment. This is legacy. That would have to be removed manually before you actually can remove the sales order line. So the new functionality here actually comes into play when we do an increase, which is always. That's the feature. That is basically the feature. Shipment auto update, small feature, the enabling for order updates to flow through onto the shipment line, whereas today it would not. Only a decrease would actually flow through, not an increase. So again, handling these, you can say in small exception or update scenarios, which would otherwise require some additional effort manually or require additional effort communication-wise, which is now automatic. Controlled by warehouse, so you can have different policies applied in a legal entity across warehouses. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Henrik. And thanks, Mirza, for the other feature. Marcus, do we have any? So I guess we open up for questions, and please you unlock your mic if you want to comment on what we demo. Craig, did you want to add a comment?
Guys, for the zone-based replenishment, do we have to specify on the replenishment template the exact zone as well as on the location directive in all instances? So I think you had floor as your zone on the replenishment and floor as your zone on the location directive as well.
Yeah, so I mean, if you don't, you have not, but you can, because it does open you new. It was just to demonstrate the new selection link on the replenishment template details, where you can then select this line. It's for this zone, which enables you then to specify different lines for different zones. But I could just leave it open without, if I'm using only one. But
Perfect.
But on the location directives, I need to do it. Otherwise, we don't know where I'm going to, right?
That's what I assumed was happening, because obviously you're linking it via the directive code to that specific location directive anyway. So in theory, it would have got back, I think, to that location directive for the put. So I was a bit confused as to why we needed to mention it both.
Warehouse 61, and I have only one line. So I think the confusion comes because I have one line and then I have selected which zone to replenish on the replenishment template detail. But I could just go warehouse 61, and then the system will say, okay, that's fine. I go now and find my put on the location directives. And then if the location directive says this is the floor zone I'm putting it into, it will assess only those locations, no matter what replenishment template says.
Oh, that's perfect. And just one more question on the release rule. Are we saying that the existing release rule that is in there, which is obviously specified on the batch, when we run the periodic job to release to warehouse, are we saying that that will no longer function when this new one, which is warehouse specific, is in there as well?
Which one is currently preventing that you say? Which one is that?
So the one where you, on the periodic job, so if in warehouse management, release sales orders to warehouse, there's already a parameter in there which was releasing, allow release of partial lines, I think it was.
Yes.
Does this new parameter override that parameter?
That parameter was used for the batch, right?
Yes.
Yes. And this one works for both manual and batch.
Oh, perfect. So we've got extra functionality around the manual release as well. That's brilliant.
And the most important thing is that when the cross-docking, advanced planned cross-docking comes in, that it will take in account this new one. So whoever says, well, I want to block for the partial reservation, but however, I want to allow my cross-docking to work still, then these should be used.
Perfect. That's brilliant. Thank you.
It's very. We also want to tell you that we are introducing all of the features. So maybe sometimes in the future we might want to deprecate some or fusion them, but now the project is about to implement as many as possible features from the AWAX package as soon as possible and enrich the functionality. And only if they completely overlap each other, then we do changes. But right now we are kind of just adding them. So it's the extra capability.
Okay. I have a question for Mirza. The work ID for your replenishment, for your zone replenishment, was it put location blank or?
Yeah, because probably something in my setup was wrong, but it will consolidate to the location and then find the other one as empty. I will record the videos of these two tomorrow and then publish it, so you will be able to see.
Okay, thank you.
But just to be completely I received some questions during the implementation from various people saying that, is this solving the problem of replenishment that you know all about, which is that when you allow a split on the pick and you allow a split on the put, is it clever enough to take now and kind of a bulk replenishment and then just do a multiple puts, as you know from the inbound? Answer is no. It does completely reuse the code of the current min and max replenishment with an disadvantage of as soon as you do any split due to the stocking limit or anything else, it creates you an extra replenishment work because it's not capable still of picking a pallet, and then because of the stocking limits or whatever else constraint you have, mixing logic of items on the location profile, whatever, it will not allow you to just do one pick of the pallet and multiple puts, which will be ideal. It will still have separate work IDs.
Okay. Is that still separated, Mirza, by location? So each work is still by location?
Exactly the same as before. Now you're just dealing with the multiple ones at once. So now the only thing is I move 5 pallets and then I figure out where to put them to in this zone, and still the chunking of the work will end in one work, one pick and put, no multiple puts. But we are thinking here to enable that because it will be a big advantage to move one quantity and then be capable of doing multiple puts, as we do for the put away.
Yeah, and that would be a perfect goal, as you said. Yeah.
Yes. The other thing on the note, when you're asking that much on the note of replenishment, is that there will be another feature that it's enhancing even more the slotting that I was describing, and it's called replenishment over the max. It sounds strange, but what it does is that it is capable of doing the replenishment of any kind and allow replenishment to attach itself on the location above the stocking limit and then stay in that way, respecting the unit of replenishment. And then whenever something is released from this location, which means picked, then it will allow a part of the unit to be replenished or units to be replenished into that location. So let me give you an example. If I have a limit of 100 and each, and that's equals 1 pallet or 10 boxes, and then I currently have 80 in this location. If I now allow this to happen and I say I'm replenishing pallets, but I allow overfilling of the location of unpallet, let's say, it will still create put to that location. It will not chunk it to 2 because it expects us to move this inventory out of there. So what will happen is that it will replenish by units the space that you have, 2 boxes in my case, and then with the separated replenishment work, and less will stay in kind of idle mode, waiting for some stuff to be removed. So you can call it a kind of continuous replenishment of the location, even if the limit has been crossed, so you have more to replenish than what you currently have on space.
So is that then, Mirza, considering demand that is already on that location, like the slotting, for example? So sales orders that are loaded for next week.
So it does not know exactly what, so it does know how much space it's free in collation of what is on hand currently. And it does not know if it is demand there or not, but as soon as something is removed from there by demand or anything else, so something happens on quantity side, it will then release a new chunk of replenishment to it.
Perfect.
And in some cases, this will be very, very good functionality if you're running locations where you have a dedicated location for a certain item.
But Mirza, have you already picked that pallet? And then you're just putting some part of it in there, or?
No, it creates a lots of work chunked on the unit, and then or an each whatever it goes down, and then it says now I can put 20. I create a separate work ID. I put 20 there, and I wait with the rest. There is a work created for the rest, but it doesn't happen because.
So you have reserved the work on the bulk area, so to speak, by the way, but you have not execute on it. So,
Yes.
so you're creating partial work.
Yes, so this is trying to fix the problem where people have been designing to move a pallet somewhere where there is no space, and what ends often is that somebody just drops the pallet on the fictive buffer location on the aisle, and then they say, oh, I can see I have something there, so I cannot fit my pallet, so I will do a manual movement of the rest, whatever is there, and put it somewhere else, and then try to fit the pallet. But that it's kind of lottery sometimes, because you need to find a space for that rest, right? And then sometimes people are driving around to figure out where to drop the rest in order to be able to replenish the pallet, because you cannot run perfect stocking limits on many items, right? So, and you don't want to dismantle the pallet. So this is what it's enabling that functionality. And it's tied to the slotting part, because slotting sometimes cannot replenish everything at once because of this problem.
Mirza, just to be clear, is the work created and blocked until that location's empty?
Correct. It is created and blocked. Yes.
Brilliant.
Everything is created, but it's blocked due that quantity on hands are preventing us to move something.
And as soon as that quantity is removed, then the replenishment is released.
Correct.
Magic.
And this would be, is it slated for the next version? Or?
Yes, yes. And because we are building the new framework, now we can talk 2 days about this, but we're also building a new framework for the blocking part, which has nothing to do with AWAX features, because as you know, our wave was sometimes in the held state, even that it was completed, and then something enters the held state, due that we have some replenishment or some blocking or whatever. But it was not completely clear why it is blocked now. And what guys here have been working on, we have done the new framework that every single blocking will have its name. So when you want to unblock something, it will be stored in a separate table, and all of these AWAX features that we're integrating will be supporting exactly the same. So when this feature blocks the replenishment work due that capacity problem, what you will see in the blocking will be blocked due to, and then below, if you hover over the word blocked, it will tell you missing capacity or whatever we are going to call it. So you will be completely clear of why this is blocked, which you are not today, because we have been using this unique blocked, and then wave goes into health mode, and then nobody knows why exactly. It could be manual blocking, it could be various reasons. So now this will be very specific.
Okay, but this is
okay.
feature to come.
Yeah, sorry.
So any more questions to the 4 feature that we have demoed today? Well, thank you for attending then, and hopefully see you next month. Bye for now.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you for your
Thanks,
time.
guys.
Yeah, bye.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Bye.